God bless you, sir. Oh, boy.
Oh gosh.
Din it.
Welcome
Whoops.
to the podcast.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello. What up, punks? Whoops, I almost knocked
What up,
over my
punks?
mic. What up, punks? What up, punks? What up, punks?
We should do
Welcome
a clip
back
show.
to another episode of the Pop Culture. I had a monster.
Good.
Welcome back to another episode of the Pop Culture Punks podcast, where we bring pop culture to the pit for you every week. Without fail. This week we'll be picking apart what we've been up to this past week or two maybe, because we didn't really go into it a lot last week. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Bam.
A little bit of an extended pop culture update.
So this is literally an episode just telling you what we did, because we're so interesting.
Yeah, we live such interesting lives.
Such interesting lives on the couch.
But before we get into that, I got some news items here, which might
Yeah.
be relevant to the folks
Very much.
out there.
Very much
You
so.
might have something you didn't add. We'll see where it goes from there. But number one, the Titans TV show has been officially certified fresh on Rotten's Tomatoes.
Yep.
With an 84% critic and then 79% user,
which is fascinating.
Yeah, I feel like, and I've been reading some things and watching some things on YouTube, and like people are like actually like astonished. They're like, I like went into this thinking it was going to be atrocious, and like it was good. So like,
Okay.
it's definitely getting me to want to sign up. I think I got the bum headphones because I realized I'm not hearing anything.
Oh, it's fine. You're good. You're all good, sir.
I think I might wait till the whole season's out.
That's
and then
a good
just
idea.
7-day trial binge it.
That's a good idea.
So go from there. And then Luke Cage and Iron Fist, two of the Marvel shows, got
Both
canceled.
I was
not surprised with Iron Fist.
Yes.
When I saw Luke Cage, I was a little bit surprised, but still not like completely astonished, just because like it's just not as huge as the other ones. And I feel like with Disney's new streaming platform, there might be something going on there where they're like, Netflix is like, we don't want to do anymore, so you guys can have it or something. So
well, and that's what I wondered too, is if there was I don't know. Some of the Marvel properties are so spread out across so many things that there's at some point I'm just like, I don't even know what everybody has and where that goes. But I was genuinely surprised that Luke Cage got canceled, and I don't know what that means for Jessica Jones, Punisher, Daredevil, but maybe nothing. Maybe because those three have done really well. But I don't know if Jessica Jones falls into the same, like Iron Fist. No one was surprised about. I think everyone was kind of like, okay, that we'll let that one go. But
I think it's hard for me to gauge because I've only seen Punisher and Daredevil. Sure. So in my mind, like I'm like, those two are not going to get canceled because they're like the best. But I feel like Jessica Jones gets pretty good reviews too. I think out of the 5, Luke Cage and Iron Fist were the two that were kind of like half. At least with Luke Cage, it was like hit or miss with people, like whether it was really good or whether it was kind of just like, it's worth watching. Mm-hmm. And Iron Fist was like, okay,
unanimously
you're done.
Not liked. Yeah.
But Jessica Jones, I've heard really good things about the first season, and then the second season is kind of like, and it seems to be the case with a lot of the shows. Like either the second season is like really good, or people are kind of let down by it. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with those 3 shows. I feel like Daredevil season 3 has been getting really good reviews, so I feel like that's going to stick around.
Yeah. When they're working on Punisher season 2, so I wonder if they're going to wait for the ratings on that to just make a decision. Yeah. But I don't know.
I think like in my eyes, Punisher season 1 was really good, but I think the ratings overall, like Rotten Tomatoes scores, aren't very high. Yeah. So I think like that's another show where it's like iffy with the public. So I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't renew it for season 3, depending on how 2 does. I feel like Daredevil's got at least one more season, right? But I'll have to see season 3 to really gauge it. So.
Part of me wonders too if there's something. It has something to do with where I feel Daredevil and Punisher are more iconic characters across people who don't even know characters very well. Whereas I feel that Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist are more niche. Like if you really know the comics and you know how some of those things work. So I wonder if Punisher might get a little more grace in the second season, or if the second season has been kind of considered the axe point for these. And so, like, if Jessica Jones didn't do super hot, maybe they're going to put... And maybe all of this is just because Disney is basically putting the pressure on Netflix to give up the IPs because they're going to be doing something with their service. So...
And that could be it. So I guess we'll see what happens. I think, like... For me, I don't know what other viewers are like, but for me, the reason I really haven't been interested in the other 3 shows is because they're not as iconic, and because like they don't seem to play up the superhero aspect as much.
Mm-hmm.
So like, none of them really have cool suits, and I think like, well, a lot of people might not be that into that. I feel like the superhero thing is like to have a cool suit. So like, if they would have actually given Iron Fist his like dope suit with the yellow and the green and kind of like that sort of dragon style, it might have just had that little bit extra push with like the superhero aspect.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen them, so I don't know what the storytelling aspects are like, and I've heard that's
been the thing that I've seen the biggest or the majority of gripes about. So I really kind of want to go back now and watch them and see what happened, or if, because it could be that they just didn't live up to what people were expecting, or they just didn't match pace.
I think too, with like, it basically just always comes back to what the MCU is doing. Like, if you're not like keeping up with them, then people are gonna be unimpressed. People only have so much time. I think, like, I'm mostly talking about like normal people, not like people who are diehard like superhero people. Like they just watch everything. More just like the average consumer is like gonna be burnt out on superhero stuff if you don't keep it actually like interesting and engaging. So. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I hope they don't cancel Punisher or Daredevil. If anything, I hope they just move them over. But at the same time, I kind of hope they don't, so I don't have to buy another streaming service just to watch.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if they have like, I mean, Disney's streaming service has huge potential. Like if they put all of the Marvel stuff on there, all of like eventually all the Star Wars stuff once they get their licenses back, and like. That's going to be a huge streaming service.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you can watch all the Marvel, all of the Disney, like, if they put Pixar movies on there and stuff, like, even if it's just rotating, like, that's, like, game-changing.
Well, and I wonder, too, if they might leverage having more shows, like Pixar-style shows versus movies. Like, if they could pull that off, that'd be interesting. That could be really interesting. Yeah. So, of all these random services that are cropping up, I think Disney's interests me the most just because of Marvel, Star Wars, and Pixar / those animated movies, to see what they could do with that. But at the same time, it's right on the precipice of when there's just going to be an overflow of random streaming service and every company wanting their own streaming service. And I honestly, if I had to predict, I almost think it's going to sink more companies than it's going to help, because I think people are becoming less and less willing to... Like, I was willing to get Netflix and Hulu because there was a huge library of stuff on Hulu, with anime and certain Fox shows and stuff like that, Comedy Central stuff that you could only get there, whereas Netflix has more modern shows and bigger blockbusters that end up there. And so it's kind of, it balanced out, whereas sense. I think if there's 20 of them, people are going to be like, well, I'm just going to get Disney because Disney has all the stuff that I want to watch.
I think, like... People keep saying it's just going to be cable again, where you have to like get a ton of different channels. But in my mind, like, it's better than cable because it's going to find some sort of settling point, and like you only have to sign up for a monthly basis. Like, you don't have to sign an entire contract and get a ton of crappy channels you don't actually want. Like, if I want to watch a Disney show, I can pay for a month of Disney service, watch the show, and cancel it. Or I can buy Netflix for a month. Like, it's kind of like... You're not really contractually bound to any one service, and so now it's like it's almost more consumer friendly. So like we can pick and choose what we want to watch.
Definitely.
So I think it's gonna suck for a while just having like 50 services, but I think as people start picking and choosing again, I think it's big companies are gonna realize like this is not profitable for us to do this. Let's just give it back to Hulu, Netflix, Prime, and like let them deal with distributing our shows for streaming, because like. Not everybody's going to be able to sustain it. So.
Well, and I think this is the other thing I'm concerned about, even for certain companies too, is if everyone is jumping onto the streaming bandwagon, if all of a sudden it turns into this kind of like what happened with games, I feel like, is there are certain companies that Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft are the heavy hitters, but then Microsoft has nothing really to offer. Like, it's just a system, and granted, it isn't one-to-one because they're kind of dealing with hardware and software.
Yeah.
Whereas I think... you're going to have the behemoths like DC potentially, if they can keep the quality up in their stuff. You're going to have Disney. You're going to have, I can't think of any of the other, there's a few I know that are talking about it. But
I mean, CBS has their own. HBO's got their own.
But I mean, CBS is probably a good example. I don't really care. Like, HBO though, it's a full channel. They have Game of Thrones. They have Westworld. They have a number of dynamite shows that people are probably going to be more willing to pay for. Whereas, you're going to have these, broadcast TV channels like CBS who are trying to do it. Like,
the only way they'll get people in is forcing them to with like They did it with Star Trek, the new Star Trek. It's the only place it's available. So it'll be interesting to see. So it's an interesting time to be in. I think it's hard to complain about it because we just have like so much TV and like I'm probably not gonna be able to watch all of these shows. But
even
like,
so, definitely
other people can. So
cool.
Yeah.
I don't really have much news. Oh, I do have something. Apparently there's rumors that there's a Switch 2.0 headed out next year. So I don't know.
Some people are wondering if it's going to be an improvement, or they're wondering if it's going to be like a light, like a DS Lite sort of thing.
Yeah, where they
basically
shrink
like a cheap version, maybe shrink it a little bit, maybe even like just handheld and not dock it or something.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah, I think I'm in a weird stage in life where I am probably more willing to jump on to like another iteration right out of the gate, but I think for certain consoles, like so for the PS4 jumping to the Pro, the only reason is because Spider-Man came and it was like,
and then you got a dope Spidey.
Exactly, it worked perfect. But you are getting more games that I think are coming out that are gonna benefit hugely from that hardware. So I'm stoked to play Anthem. I've heard Red Dead looks tops on that.
After watching Westworld, like I'm like really close to pulling the trigger on buying it. Like, because literally the entire internet is just hyped on it. So I'm like, I kind of want to get on the train.
I know, exactly. The train is flying by.
It is. And I'm like,
it's like, dang.
So
yeah,
I feel you.
It's hard. It's really hard to.
I think with Nintendo too, at least with their track record, like unless it's a new console, they usually don't release an improved version of their systems.
See, that's where it gets weird.
But if you consider the DS and the 3DS the same console, I would say that was a new jump.
That was a new console.
And I don't think they would jump this quickly to a new and improved Switch yet.
Right. I would say that a new console is, by definition, something that you can't play. Like, you need the new one to play the games that are on it. So I think the DS to the 3DS was a completely new console because
you couldn't play 3DS games on the DS.
And you needed the 3DS to play those games. However, I don't know what the deal is with this, and I don't know if it's one of those things where, they think that because people are kind of clamoring or sales are dropping a little bit, that it's, if we introduce a new variation, that there's going to be a huge surge again because people are going to want the small version or the take it on the go version, and the Switch is the dock. Maybe they're just going to make a docked, like, they could do that
a little,
too,
just a console that's maybe cheaper because they figure out some way of just docking it.
Right. Or,
or a smaller, more mobile dock or something.
Right. So, I mean, there are things that they could do, I think, that are more enticing to me as a consumer that would make it a different variation that I'd be willing to jump in, even having a modern one.
I think for me it would have to be an improved version of the console.
I would agree.
I don't think I would ever buy a light version because, like, if anything, I feel like a light version is geared towards people who have not jumped on yet because of the price point or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's the only reason for it. Because, like, DS to DS Lite was, like, it's cooler, it's a little bit smaller and more compact, but it's not better in any way. So, like, if you don't want to shell out another $100-something bucks, whatever. But then 3DS comes out and you're like, okay, I'll buy that.
Right.
So, like, until they make an improved Switch, even if it's just a Switch Plus or something, but it's improved, then maybe I'd consider it.
Right. So if I can play Red Dead on it, or if I can play,
a man can dream.
Assassin's Creed Odyssey or whatever, because I mean, they've been streaming it on. In Japan, they did something weird with it where they're streaming Assassin's Creed Odyssey on it, and it sounds like it's playing great. So I don't know if they're going to create a streaming version, or if they were just testing a way to see if a portable system could handle something like that. So I don't know. But at the same time, like, I dock my Switch the majority of the time, so really? I know I'm in the minority.
Yeah, I do handheld whenever. I haven't played in a long time, but I usually do handheld when I do. So.
Yeah, I will.
Waiting on pokies.
Yeah, I will. I'll contradict that, though, with World Ends With You, so if we want to Do you want to jump into? Yeah. So
what you been up to?
So I've been going hard in World Ends With You, and I've been talking about it a decent amount since I heard that it was coming, and love it. Still a great game. Still very interesting and very unique. Probably one of Square Enix's best standalone titles. Good freaking Lord. The motion controls make me want to punch somebody in the face. What the heck, Square? Like Zach warned me about it. It's like, it's fine. He was 100% right. It is infuriating. It is absolutely incomprehensible why you would not design it to just, I mean, they were pretty lucky that it's a touchscreen, but goodness sakes, like, just give me button commands. No, I don't want to wave around, and like, I don't want, like, there were times where literally it was unplayable, or like I was losing half my health because I was like, this isn't registering, or like I'm trying to do this thing and this is competing with this input that I just put in, and it was just like, I can't play this. It's literally not, it's almost not playable with motion controls. Like, it's ludicrous. But that said, as soon as I jumped into handheld, it's almost one of the easiest games I've ever played, just because like so many, like, the way you manage.
More playable in handheld.
Oh yeah, and I would say,
because I've been like not wanting to buy it now because I've seen videos of people and it's just like,
if you're one of the sad souls who was really excited and hoping, like me, that it was going to be playable just using a controller, because all the other ones, it was every variation of this game that has come out, because they put it on like the iPhone at one point and on iPad and stuff, and originally on the DS as well, it was all touchscreen commands and, you know, swipes and strokes and stuff like that. So playing it handheld is actually a lot of fun because you don't
use your finger.
Okay. What I really like is that you don't need to press really hard, because that was one of my concerns, is if this is going to turn into this game where I'm having to, you know,
like hammer
bash
on
my screen.
Yeah.
It is so light, and I barely use my any pressure at all, and it registers everything great, and it's super responsive. So in terms of that, it's a lot of fun, and I think actually in that sense it made the game a lot more accessible to people that I think would have maybe shied away from just the mechanics of the game. Because the way it works is you have these pins that are your attacks, and so some pins are tap the enemy to deal damage, and some of them are like swipe across Neku, who's the main character, to do punch attacks and all these things, and so, or drag your finger in open space to create this kind of attack, or so there's things like that where you can imagine doing that with a Wiimote versus your finger, and it's like night and day.
Okay. I mean, I probably would play it in handheld too, so maybe I will get it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty quick too. It's feeling like it's going a lot faster than it was when I originally played it. I think partially is because when I played it, I was pretty young in the relative nature of picking up a game to beat it and finish it, especially one like that was very dense and story driven. But it's very good if you don't play it on the TV, which infuriates me that I even have to say that, because they should have done something. And granted, I was thinking about it today because I just wanted to rail on how dumb it was that they would do that. I can understand, because the original game would require a lot of overhauling, and I'm sure what they did is they just high-res the art, and they just did some game mechanic changes to kind of sort it out from the touchscreen version. But at the same time, there were ways that they could have turned this into a like beat 'em up style brawler almost game, which to me would have made it a 10, like a perfect game. But right now it's like an 8.5, I think.
Okay. As long as you play it in handheld.
As long as you play it in handheld, it's like an 8.5, 9. Like, it's still fun.
Okay.
It's very accessible. It's got an interesting story. It's kind of got that JRPG trope in terms of characters, where this is the happy-go-lucky character and this is the very intense character. But from what I remember and how some of the mechanics unfold, or how some of the story unfolds as the game goes on, it gets very interesting. It's really good. So, but yeah.
I'll have to keep an eye out for a sale.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. So that's that game-wise. I've just been plugging in a lot of hours to that. What did I read? I guess I'm still on kind of the gripe train. So there was that one-off comic issue of what if Peter Parker became the Punisher.
Uh-oh.
I was so unbelievably let down.
Uh-oh.
That was one
I'm
of
have to borrow that from you.
It was one of the biggest letdowns I have ever experienced. It was so bad. You literally, and I fully acknowledge you took two of my favorite, I literally have them adorning my house, two of my favorite superheroes, and you put them into one comic and was like, what if they were the same person? And I was like, oh, this is gonna be incredible. And it was terrible. It was so bad. Like, it was so bad. I just don't know what they thought, because the whole thing that seemed interesting is you're taking Peter Parker, who's known as this, I'm going to find the good in everybody and I'm going to do this thing. And it was just all over the board. It focused on all the stuff that was not interesting. And it, like 30-40% of the comic was devoted to like love stuff between him and Gwen Stacy. Half the action and fight things that could have been really dope, Punisher, Spider-Man, beaten, like literally killing Green Goblin or literally killing Doc Ock, were done in these ways where I'm like, wait, does he like kill or not? But then it confirms it through a news article where Spider-Man kills, the Punisher. Well, he's called the Punisher now. There's, whatever. And half of those things are told through news head clippings that just show. It was like you missed out on showing what could have been some of the coolest moments of having Peter Parker with like guns in his web shooters and all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Like killing these guys. Like, that's the whole point of the Punisher. If it was like Frank Castle becomes Spider-Man, it's different. I feel like it's you can argue like, oh well, the Spider-Man doesn't kill, and so it's like, okay, like fine, you're telling it through that lens, but you literally said what happens if Peter Parker becomes the Punisher. Every comic I've ever read of the Punisher so far has been a brutal, violent, bloody mess, and this was the most non-violent, apropos, bland, boring story I have ever. It was horrid.
Interesting.
It made me so sad. It could have been so good, and
maybe
could have
it's
been
fate,
so
though.
interesting.
Maybe it means that Peter Parker could never actually be the Punisher effectively.
And maybe I think if I would have read that in the story, I think that would have been an interesting statement. It did not come across that way.
They were just being wishy-washy with it.
Exactly. Like maybe I missed it, but how I understood it and how I interpreted it, it just seemed like they didn't focus, at least in my personal opinion, they didn't focus on what, to me as a Spider-Man and Punisher fan, made the whole concept interesting, which was you have these characters that are completely opposite, like one who's very brooding and ready to use lethal force all the time versus another kid who's, like, no, I'm not going to kill anybody and all this stuff. And
whimsical,
happy-go-lucky. Exactly. And it just, it all just kind of blended together and wasn't very interesting and very, very, very forgettable. So I'm very thankful that I didn't try super, super hard. I found it where it was like with shipping, I could get it for like $10 on eBay. So I was like, it's not terrible. $10. But man,
might be one of those comments that goes up in price. So
maybe
you can set me off it someday.
For like $30 or something. I will gladly. So
give it to some other poor soul.
Exactly. Yeah. So
some collector who just has to have it.
They can be disappointed.
Dang, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
I was kind of excited about that one too. I'll have to borrow it from you so I can see.
Definitely, just so you can see. But jumping from that, Disturbed, Evolution, their newest album, very interesting. I love it. It's still Disturbed. They are still incredible music talent. It's very interesting how they took this album. Like, I think they almost it seems like they took the success of their Sound of Silence cover and then pulled it into making more melodic, kind of mellow songs, and I love that, because some of my favorite Disturbed songs ever are like Darkness from Believe, I think, and there's a couple other songs that they've done that have been more
like
low key
ballad type songs.
More like ballad songs that haven't been super punchy, or even ones that have had more of an intensity but are more melodic and are like slow moving but still have the edge to it.
Yeah,
so they kind of took an approach like that, and I dug it. I thought it's awesome. I'm curious what other Disturbed fans have to say, because I could see a lot of people who are,
I'll have to look on Reddit or something,
angry metalheads who are like, this isn't angry enough, and like, where's all the like, angst and violence, and it was just a very new take on their style, and so and I really liked it. So I have to I only listened to it all the way through once last week, and so I'd have to listen to it again to kind of pick out memorable songs. I've kind of noticed that with albums is usually it kind of blends together until I kind of I remember
it a couple times.
Exactly. man, they have a cover from, I think when they performed Sound of Silence at the Grammys, I want to say. And it is incredible. Yeah, it's with, who does it feature? It's Miles Kennedy. I don't know who that is. But
lead singer of, frick, what band is he the lead singer of? I forget. It sounds really familiar, though.
So, but Miles Kennedy performed with them at the Grammys,
okay.
I think, and man, it's incredible. Like that song with I feel like was like written for Draymond. Just how he performs it is just stunning. So they have a version of that, the live recording on the album, and so
Alter Bridge.
Okay, yeah.
Lead vocalist and rhythm guitarist.
Nice. So yeah, it was stellar.
Nice.
But yeah, great album. Definitely not. I couldn't pin it to any of their other ones. I honestly think it's closest to Immortalized out of any of them.
Is that their most other?
That was their most recent one. Yeah. Okay. So, because part of me was like, ooh, I wonder if they're gonna kind of go 10,000 Fists or Indestructible or just.
I think that's what people want. But
I
feel like they haven't been that for a long time.
Yes.
It's kind of like most metal bands nowadays. Like Five Finger gets a lot of flack for not being as like brutal as they once were,
right.
Or Linkin Park. I mean, they went in a whole different direction, but
yeah,
I feel like bands are allowed to do what they want.
Like, oh yeah,
especially as a a person who is creative. If somebody was telling me how to like do something, I'd be like, no,
be the old.
I'm gonna do whatever I want.
Right, exactly. Like basically, stay the same, don't change, and then you're gonna have the other people.
Yeah.
That same person, as soon as you do that, is gonna be, the person who's griping about, oh, it's changed too much. And
exactly.
So it's just been very interesting seeing critiques of things like that, where I think it's totally valid to desire them to go back to that style because that's what made them original. But in my opinion, though, if you carry that logic through, which is where I come from, as long as they sound like them and they don't sound like every other generic band, or if, because that's why I don't like pop music. If I get every pop star confused constantly because I'm
you turn on pop radio and it's just all
exactly.
The
I'm like, I don't know if this is
stuff.
Lady Gaga or freaking what's her face, Taylor Swift.
It's
Pink,
like
I don't know.
Katy
Yeah,
Perry.
Pink, it's like I don't know who any of these are,
Yeah.
and they all sound the same. Whereas as long as I know that, like, nope, that's Draymond, nope, that's Disturbed, that's Five Finger.
Yeah.
If they change, like that is what it is. Like that's what being an artist is adapting. So. Yeah.
Exactly.
Have you had a chance to listen to it at all?
I haven't checked it out
Okay,
yet. I've heard all the singles, but I haven't listened to the album yet.
Yeah.
So
I've
liked what I've heard so far.
Yeah. So the singles are pretty on par with the rest of it. Okay. So I think there's a few more that are a little more melodic and softer tone, but
cool.
It's a good jam.
Dope.
Movie wise, I'm super behind on this movie, but Kingsman: Golden Circle,
the first one. All right.
It was jamming. I figured you'd
like a movie like that.
Dope flick. Yeah. Dang, man, that was it. It just was the perfect homage to spy stuff, and they owned it, but they still made it fun and modern, and it was good. Like they just made it well. Like it was a well-made movie. It wasn't gonna win any Oscars or be something that blew my mind with how deep the story or the philosophy in it was, but it was just It was what I wish Hollywood would do more of, is just make a good movie. It was just well made.
I felt like the characters were all pretty likable.
Yep.
Like I really liked his mentor and like the main character.
Yeah.
It was cool. And it had those moments where it was like the underdog overcoming like the obstacle and like the feel good moments sort of. And then just like that one brutal scene like in the church or whatever.
My gosh, that was nuts.
Yeah.
Just mayhem.
Like they just have such a good blend of, like you said, spy homages, like different types of things, and the bad guy with the SIM cards and stuff. Like it's just like very well constructed and cool sort of things.
It was just fun. It was just it was a movie where I was like, I don't feel ashamed to say I like this. Like again, it's not some crazy movie that's gonna win some crazy award for how deep it was, but it was something that I would tell people, hey, if you want a good hardcore action movie, this is an awesome movie, and it's really well made. Just even the cinematography with the fighting scenes was more engaging. Like it was frantic, but you could still see it was like a mix of spy and like martial arts movies, where it was martial arts movies. I feel like are shot to show the action, and even though it's choreographed, it's just so fun to watch. So well done. The dance of like this fist fight, and I feel like that's a lot of what this movie was just all these crazy camera pans where he like stabs this guy in the throat, and then this guy like swings through and he like ducks, but then the camera like moves with him. Like it isn't just a quick cut to him at a different angle. It's like
it like
just the tracking and stuff.
Them,
Oh my goodness, it's a fun ride.
I agree. I've seen it like twice now, and it was fun the second time too.
Awesome, yeah. So I'm excited to see the first one. I was talking to my parents about it because they really like the first one, and they said that the second one is a worthy successor, but there's some moments that they were like, I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard there's some. Like the one scene in the first one that felt so out of place was the scene like with the princess or whatever at the end.
Yeah,
I was like, that was kind of why did that even
frustrating.
need to be in there?
Yeah,
like,
that was kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
Like I
like
think
if you somehow wrote it into the story, but like it was literally just a side thing where he's like, I'll be back later. Like it had nothing to do with the story in some ways. Like it was kind of just like and maybe that was like the spy thing. Like James Bond always gets the lady in the end, sort of. But
right.
It's kind of like shoehorned.
Exactly.
In. And I've heard that there's more of that in the second one.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
But even more explicit maybe.
No, jeez.
But more integrated into the story. So it's like
okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So
but man,
that's actually based off a comic.
Oh really?
Yeah, by Mark Miller.
Okay.
Who he also wrote the Kick-Ass comics.
Oh,
which the movies
gotcha.
were based off of.
Yeah. Okay.
And then
tight.
He wrote like Old Man Logan. There's a lot of movies based on his comics. He has this universe called Miller World, I think it's called.
Nice.
And he like his whole thing is he basically writes comics that could be made into movies. So like his comics are very like cinematic.
Hey, I guess that's where we can start. Yeah.
So
cool. Yeah. So really dug that. And then my last thing was credit closed my
White Knight.
White Knight. So I have been reading Batman White Knight by Sean Murphy.
Sean Gordon Murphy.
Yeah. It's dope. I love is that his art style too? I wasn't sure if he
wrote it and did the art. I forgot who did the coloring, but he didn't do the coloring.
Yeah, the art is freaking rad. I love just like the very edgy kind of sketch style, but with detail and stuff like that. Like that.
I feel like you need to read Punk Rock Jesus.
Yeah, that
comic's
is
fun.
He the one who wrote?
He wrote it and drew it too.
Yeah,
and it's black and white. His art is really nice in black and white.
Cool.
So
so I'm gonna have to check that out. But so far, I've really enjoyed the narrative so far. Basically, the premise, if anyone's interested, is Batman cures the Joker of his insanity in a very like violent means, and the Joker kind of set it up that way.
Basically on camera, like somebody was filming him.
Yeah, and
as
so
he was beating the snot out of
and like
Joker
force feeding him all these
with
pills.
The police watching.
Yeah, exactly. And it was one of those things that was really fascinating, where clearly the writing is curated to make it that clearly Batman is kind of in the wrong and Gotham is kind of in the wrong, and so it's definitely not them stepping into the classical Batman narratives and then saying like, hey, look at all these flaws and all these systems and all this bad stuff.
This is more of a little bit more of a gung-ho Batman.
Exactly.
Almost like a Dark Knight Returns, like at all costs sort of Batman.
Exactly. Yeah, but I've really enjoyed the take on making Batman the villain in a way, and that he's kind of the issue, and that even though he's doing a good thing, he's causing a lot of problems too. And just it's interesting because they tie some race stuff into it as well, and just the economic status of Gotham.
Like the news guy keeps calling
like
people SJWs and stuff.
Yeah, he's like, all these SJWs out there protesting. It's like
we need Batman.
Yeah, it was like he's white privilege, man. Like I did, like we joked.
It's white privilege, man. Yeah,
white privilege.
Yeah,
but no, legit. Like it's done in a way that is very, very classy, and I think very intriguing for the idea where it's exploring a lot of things that I never thought you don't think about in Gotham, but then you're like, oh, that's fascinating that he's putting that at the forefront. Where when you think about it, like Bruce Wayne is this like billionaire, super rich, kind of runs the city in a way, family, and there's a lot of people at his status level in Gotham, but at the same time, it's also one of the poorest, most destitute, violent, criminal-ridden cities.
Crapshoot.
Exactly. So it's very interesting how he's taking that part of, like, he's not forcing it into the narrative, and because again, I could see people being like, well, it's all preachy and all this stuff. It's like, no, he's taking something that actually is existing in that world, and he's saying, what if we kind of prodded this a little bit and kind of created these narratives around it? And so it's awesome. I really, really, really dig it, and it's made me like the Joker even more. I've always been fascinated with him as a character and really liked him, but it's interesting seeing Jack Napier Joker, like quote unquote Joker, and him trying to distance himself as much away from that as it is, all these other people kind of wrestling with the world.
Yeah.
And him not being himself. So
for sure.
So it's a great read.
I got it in the mail a couple days ago, and I read like the first 10 or so pages, and the art is fantastic.
Yeah,
and I definitely
awesome.
like the way the story's going.
Yeah.
It's very reminiscent of The Killing Joke, but in the opposite sense. Because like in The Killing Joke, the Joker's just trying to prove to Batman that all it takes is one day for you to become like him.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sort of like the inverse, where he's like, and it's kind of reinforcing the idea that like Batman needs the Joker.
No, sure.
Otherwise, like he's just brutalizing people without the Joker to scare them into submission, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like the similar concept, but Joker actually gets better, which is cool in my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
and I like it, and it's interesting too because he's written it in a way where there are moments I even catch myself being like, okay, but what about this? And then he directly is like, yes, and I've already thought through. He's literally written the Joker to be like, I'm legitimately doing the best thing possible. Like I'm literally doing the best options for Gotham that there is. And I was like, thank you. Because I think I would have been more irritated with it if it turned into this like, well, I'm this good and I'm doing all these good things, but here's this selfishly crazy thing that I'm saying that I'm doing.
He's like
but
legitimately trying.
He's legitimately like, hey, like there's a portion, I won't say the details, but there's a portion where he's working with the Gotham PD and just how the whole situation plays out. I definitely was like, okay, here we go. Now he's gonna be like actually evil, and then it's like literally the thing of like, why hasn't the city done that? Like, why hasn't Gordon and all these big wigs, like why haven't they tried a system like this? Like that just makes sense. And like why is Batman pissy about
complacent?
Exactly. And so it's very, very, very interesting, and there's a lot of depth to. I feel like what's cool about it too is it adds depth to Gotham City and a lot of the infrastructures that are intertwined into it versus just being about Batman looking for these bad guys or fighting these bad guys. It's as much about Joker not being Joker and Batman becoming bad Batman, and
they kind of like
literally the social structure of
roles.
Gotham being flipped around and messed with. And so I think that's what's making it a lot of fun. There's a lot of depth to it. So
cool.
But other than that, that's pretty much, yeah, dude.
I think I'm like 10 pages in. I got it on Friday, I think.
Tight.
So
yeah, so definitely highly recommend.
Cool. Nice. Is that everything?
What you on?
Got it all.
You were on a TV kick. It looked like.
Yeah, I've finished The Witcher. I don't remember if I ever said that, but I like finished it. I didn't finish the DLC. Like one of the DLCs, it starts off really slow, and you have to go to this wedding and do all these like little games and kind of entertain the guests. And I'm like, at that point, I had already put 60 hours into it, and I was like,
no.
I'm gonna put this away. I'll play it again next year maybe and get through the DLC and stuff. So I finished that, put that away, and so I decided to go back to comics. But I have a whole list of TV shows now that I'm trying to get caught up on, like Stranger Things and
tight.
So the first one on my list was Man in the High Castle, season 3, which came out a couple weeks ago, and so I finished that. It was really good. It's one of those shows where like it's not like in my mind Game of Thrones level like drama. Like it there's moments where it's kind of slow and you're like, all right, like what is the point of what's happening right now? But I think the overarching plot advances well enough where it's really interesting, and like they're almost taking it into like a multiverse sort of thing, and the Nazis are trying to like basically like bring their fascist agenda to all of the multiverses, which is a little bit cheesy, but I think the way it's going to play out hopefully isn't as cheesy because they've kind of revealed how like the traveling works between the universes, and it's like actually impossible for the Nazis to march their army into other universes without certain things happening. So it'll be interesting going into the 4th season, which I hope doesn't take forever. But yeah, I would highly recommend it to anybody. It's on Amazon Prime.
Yep.
So if you have Prime, it's free to stream.
I'll have to check it out.
So it's pretty good. And then after that, I started season 2 of Westworld, which I've been holding out a long time on. And I'm definitely glad I watched it because season 2, I was skeptical because with season 1, I don't want to spoil it, but the way the season plays out, like it's kind of like a Shutter Island or something where like all of a sudden like your perspective just changes in like 2 episodes after, and you're like, I'm gonna have to watch this whole thing again just to like
catch on the nuances.
see the connections, and like it's really hard to replicate that sort of feeling. And I felt like season 2 was just gonna end up being trite action, whatever, and it wasn't gonna feel the same. And it was definitely much more violent. There was so many shootings and
nice.
It was like much more Wild Westy, I would say. But it was super good. It's really confusing. I had to look up a timeline afterwards because like there's like 3 timelines happening concurrently like during the season. But it's really good the way that they intertwine all of the different perspectives in different times. So, and the way that the AI or the hosts they call them are starting to gain like their sentience and stuff also causes them to have like memories, but they experience memories as like actual experiences. So it makes the show even more trippy because you're just like, you also don't know like what is real and what is like their mind playing tricks on them.
Sure.
So
cool.
There's a lot of opportunities for cool moments in that show. So
nice.
So yeah, those are the main 2 shows. I think my next show is going to be Daredevil. So kind of working down the list of new releases.
Cool.
And then what else did I do? I also, like I said, I started reading Batman White Knight. I don't have many thoughts on that yet. I got back on the comic train, so I started reading Mouse, which I've heard a lot of good things about, and I heard about it a lot in school. We never had to read it for some reason, but it's so heavy. I can't read it in the same way I read other comics, because like after like 5 pages, I'm just like depressed about the state of humanity.
Sure.
Like, I feel like you just like in your mind you know what happened during World War II, but you don't really know what happened unless you like read about it and see things. And so like just reading like a firsthand experience through like the comic form is just, and the way he does it too, it's like basically part of the comic is him interviewing his dad about, I think it's his dad, about his experiences like in the war and in Auschwitz and stuff. So you get like that personal connection. Like it's basically him telling the story through his eyes, and it's like just the level of optimism at the beginning of the book, and you can just feel like the degradation in like,
oh sure,
kind of like they would get from one situation to another and like be super like, okay, now we're finally good, we can settle down, whatever, and then they would just get pushed out of their neighborhood, and like it's just this degradation of like hope. It's basically like just tearing away all the hope that they have, and you can like feel it in real time. So it's just, man, it's so heavy.
Yeah, it's
I haven't even gotten to the part where like they're actually in Auschwitz yet. Like they haven't even gotten taken away yet. But everything up to there is just so depressing, but so good at the same time. So yeah, I've been reading that, and then I finally got the next trade for Invincible. Because somebody else had it checked out, so I've been waiting for like 2 weeks for it. And that's getting really good. I feel like you should definitely read this series. But yeah, it's just getting so intense, and like it's sort of another flip. Basically, like every 3 trades, it's just like something happens. You're like, I would never have seen this happening, but now it makes sense when it does.
Sure.
And so it just keeps like
causing
all these epic superhero events to happen.
Nice.
I started reading Akira.
Yeah, buddy.
I figured I
saw that boy young Zach was stoked on it.
Yeah, he tweeted at me and said prepare to read a masterpiece or something like that.
Well, we watched the movie in Julian's class.
Yeah, when I watched that, I wasn't really like that impressed with it for some reason. I think at the time I just didn't get what was going on, because a lot of anime from that time period, like when I watch it, I just don't like get what is happening, because we watched Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, and
we watched
very
Paprika.
Trippy.
We watched a lot of like older movies and stuff, and I was just like, what? Like, there's not a lot of dialogue, and it's just like it's very atmospheric and very like almost like culturally bound to a certain extent. And I like don't get it. But now reading the comic, I can keep pace with it a little bit better, and I'm really liking it so far. I'm almost through the first book out of 6, so
sweet.
It's pretty intense. It's intense how they can like draw these epic motorcycle chases and stuff just like on a page, and like you can actually like feel the action happening.
Yeah.
So
when I know we in our cyberpunk episode, Akira is kind of considered a pretty defining cyberpunk film, just because there's that futuristic science-y element, and there's a lot of dystopian nature to the city. And because I can't remember, is it based in actual Tokyo, or is it like, I thought I don't know don't remember if they use like a special name for it or something, or if they change it, or if it's actually.
I think it's in actual Tokyo. I think basically what happens is, I don't remember what time period, but I think it was in a time gone like long past, according to them, because it was in the 90s that they wrote it. But somebody drops like some sort of special bomb, so it's probably like an analog for the nuclear bomb or whatever. But it's like this weird technological bomb that like starts World War III, and then it kind of takes place in the aftermath of World War III in Tokyo. So it's not like a wasteland, but it's definitely like post-apocalyptic, like cyberpunk-y.
Like gangs and stuff.
Yeah, it's like basically just gangs and like stuff like that so far. So
yeah.
It's good so far. So I'd recommend it.
I need to go back and watch the movie again.
That's what I'm thinking too.
So much flew over my head.
Yeah, I think once I finish it, I'm probably gonna try and watch the movie and see what happens. So.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good. And then the last thing I want to give a shout out to Isaac's. Isaac dropped some new music. My brother-in-law.
Yes.
Isaac Worzbinski. His band's name is Orchid Whales. And you said you were listening to it today. I've listened to it.
Curious Journey or
A Curious Adventure.
Curious Adventure.
By Orchid Whales. It's on most streaming platforms, I think.
Yeah.
I've been listening to it on Spotify.
If you're interested, be the cool person and kick him the $4 for it. And it's awesome. Like it's very chill. It's been fun listening to more music like that, because I know that always will be metalhead, more into intense hip hop and just like punchy music sounds, but it's been fun listening to other people, and especially a lot of people who have been doing more. On iTunes it's listed as like psychedelic, but it's almost like the alternative version of like chill step. So instead of like chill hip hop kind of sound, it's almost like alternative, but just not as aggressive.
Yeah.
Where it's just very smooth, and you can kind of pick out every instrument, and
it's I don't know what his intent is behind it. I think we should get him on sometime to talk about it.
Awesome.
But like it's got a lot of like atmospheric sounds. Almost even like if you watch the old Blade Runner, it's got a lot of those like almost like atmospheric like techie sounds.
Yes, definitely.
But then over the top like psychedelic-y, like groovy bass lines and like groovy drums. Like it's got like it's almost like jazz, but like synth with like indie pop, indie rock.
Yes.
And I don't want to like pigeonhole him into a corner, because I don't know what his intent behind it is.
Exactly.
But like it's very like groovy.
Yep.
And just like, I think psychedelic is a good word for it, but not in like the
hippie
psychedelic, but like almost like indie-ish, like synth psychedelic somehow.
Yeah, and I
think it's just like I haven't heard anything like it before.
Yeah.
I'm sure he has, because that's probably what he's listening to a lot of nowadays.
Yep.
But it's very interesting to me.
Yeah,
so.
It's awesome. I haven't listened to his first album yet, but A Curious Adventure by Orchid Whales. So it's good. It's on iTunes and Spotify. And iTunes, it's like $4 for 6-7 songs or something, and they're all really good.
Yeah.
So definitely recommend. Highly recommend.
Same.
Totes.
Love to get him on sometime.
Yeah.
Talk music.
Anything else?
I'm trying to think. I feel like that's it.
I've
been doing a lot of TV, so.
You gonna swap to anything else in the interim, or?
I want to play another game. I tried to play Syndicate, it's called, the Cyberpunk one. Yeah. But like it was just so sensitive on the PC. I think I'm gonna have to plug in my controller and try and use that.
Sure.
Otherwise, I do want to jump into Dishonored 2 at some point.
Cool.
But I think I'm taking a break from video games to do the comic thing for a while.
Sweet.
Give it a break. And stick with Daredevil. So.
Yeah, I realized this weekend that I much more enjoyed jumping between multiple different creative entertainment things than sticking to one for a really long period of time, because I think that's how I get burnout. Whereas, I was getting a bunch of YouTube videos for us, like up or getting the episodes ready for YouTube, and then going to that, I was like, oh, this is gonna be I also just spiked my levels. Oops. I was like, all of a sudden I sounded really loud. What happened? But I was getting all those ready, and in between that, I was like, well, I'm not gonna sit and play my Switch, because I kind of want to be a little more, I don't want it to be so jolting to jump between the two. So I was just flying through White Knight, and so it's fun. I think it's just, my brain just can't binge stuff. Like I just am not a binger. It's just,
I think the only thing
It's
I can
hard.
really binge is TV.
Even then, I get burnt out. Like, I think, 'cause I know I did that for Daredevil. There was like a last year when I watched season 1, season 2.
Because we did that
I got
episode,
super
you just like
sick.
binged the whole thing, didn't
Yeah,
you?
well, because I got super sick, and I was like, well, I literally am sick enough that I can't sleep, and I don't want to sleep, and I'm well enough that I can pay attention.
Mhm.
So let's watch Daredevil, and I watched, half the season in a day, and so I just cranked through the second half and the other two the other day. I was sick, and then the following week, and I mean, it was great, and I loved every second of it, but I definitely felt more of a fatigue creatively and just in life in general versus
I think
like
there's a
watching.
difference between like being able to binge and not being able to function after binging. So
Yeah.
like I can definitely binge, and usually that's my default mode. Like if I don't establish like I'm just gonna watch one episode right now and then
Sure.
be productive.
Yeah.
Like if it's a Sunday night and I'm like, after one episode I'm like, I don't really need to do anything the rest of the night, and Evan's doing homework, so I'm just gonna watch the next one. And
Yeah.
then like 4 episodes later I'm like,
Well, yeah,
and you definitely feel like stifled afterwards, because like it's like 8:30 at night and you just watch 4 episodes of Westworld, and you're like, I don't know what to do now. Like I don't have the motivation to do anything productive now because
Yeah.
I just wasted my brain. One more episode, click. And then before you know it, it's bedtime.
Exactly, and you're like, I didn't do
Yeah.
anything, but
Yeah.
like you did. It's just not anything.
Yeah.
To give
So
you
during the
value.
week, I try and keep it to 1, maybe 2 episodes, depending. So
For sure. Yeah. Because I was jumping between all these things. Like we had so much brunch this weekend. We had an unreasonable amount of brunch this weekend. It was ridiculous. Because we went
brunch
to.
on brunch.
Have you been to Hubbard's in Middleton by chance?
Hubbard's Diner?
Yeah.
I haven't, but Evan
Okay.
said it's good. She's been there.
It's rocking. Probably not for you because there's a lot of pie stuff that's really good.
I've heard the pies are like the best.
Oh, they're so
My office
good.
mate was telling me about that.
But they've got some like good omelets and stuff. So
I
it's
love omelets.
But Hubbard. So we went there with some friends and got brunch, and it was like pounded a huge omelet that was literally eggs, ham, bacon, sausage in the omelet. That's all it was. It was all meat. And then after that, had a huge slice of key lime pie. And so we came back, and it was like maybe 12:30. So we watched Brooklyn for an hour, Brooklyn Nine-Nine for an hour, and just we literally fell asleep for like 3.5 hours.
That's awesome.
Like we were just sprawled on the couch and just gone for 3 hours.
Noise.
It was yeah.
That's awesome.
So that leads into I got productive because I woke up and I was like, I'm gonna play World Ends with You for like an hour and a half, and I did that, and I was like, I'm gonna go edit these videos for a little while, and then I read White Knight, and then
Boom.
just jump between like 20
Yeah.
different things, and I was like, hey, I feel good, like I feel energized, and I didn't really do anything useful with my life, but it was it was fun. And then we went to the Great Dane yesterday for
gosh.
brunch, Sunday brunch.
You're just
Dude,
packing
that-
all the brunches into one weekend.
Boy, that buffet, dog. That
They have a
breakfast-
buffet?
They have a brunch buffet at the Great Dane,
Dude.
and it is lethal.
Oh,
Oh my
gosh.
goodness! They had these like fried chicken tenders. They had waffles. They had pancakes.
gosh.
They had eggs. They had eggs Benedict. They had ice cream. They had ice cream cake.
Oh my god.
It was like if anyone were to come to the Midwest and be like, "Oh, I wonder what the Midwest food is like." It was like Great Dane brunch.
Go to Great Dane
It
brunch.
was that's what it was.
That's
just I literally I was joking with Gloria, but I literally was like, that was the tipping point of I need to stop because this is
I
not
am
good for
done.
me, and my heart hurts.
That's hilarious.
I felt like I could feel it in my heart, and it wasn't heartburn. It was like, oh boy, I'm a 24. I almost said 20. I don't even know how old I am. I'm a 24-year-old man, and my heart hurts after brunch. Like, this is good. We need to stop this.
That's awesome.
So I'm like, it was like, what do you want for lunch this week? I was like, protein shakes or just cold turkey. That's what we're doing.
Nice.
So, but
That's awesome. That reminds me, Evan and I watched the first Toy Story on
nice.
Saturday.
Nice.
I don't know why that reminded me of it, but
hey, brunch.
she
and
had
Toy
never
Story.
seen Toy Story. Oh, I think it's because your story reminded me that we went to the Cheesecake Factory at the mall because we went to get our rings maintenance.
Nice.
And so we went to the Cheesecake Factory, which I had never been there before. But we got
It's
cheesecake
good.
afterwards, and like we brought it home because we were pretty stuffed. So we were like, we'll save it till we watch the movie or whatever. And like I have the MyFitnessPal app, so I can like record my carbs.
Right.
And I like look up like Oreo extreme cheesecake, and one Oreo Extreme cheesecake piece had 190 grams of carbs.
Wow.
And like to put that in context for a diabetic, like the recommended intake for a diabetic per meal is 60 to 75 grams of carbs.
Oh
so
my
even
gosh.
half of this piece of cheesecake was more than I should have. So I had to like cut it in half and then another half. But then I had a quarter of a piece in the preceding times. So it was ridiculous.
Dang.
But yeah, the Toy Story 1 was pretty good actually. Evan hasn't seen any of them, so I figured after we finish the MCU, now we're on to Pixar. So.
The Pixar, the P,
the
PU.
PU.
I was like, I was gonna say it, and I was like, I shouldn't laugh. I'm 24. I should laugh at that. I'm not a child. No, man. Anytime you say PU and it's the Pixar universe.
So yeah, it was pretty good. It's interesting seeing animation from 1995 though, because Evan was like, "What? Like these people look ridiculous. Like what is going on?" And like the dog Scud or whatever his name is, Sid's dog, just looks so like janky. Like the textures look like something that somebody created like as a meme on YouTube.
Yep. Yeah.
But like that stuff was like cutting edge in the 90s.
Yeah,
so
and that took
crazy.
them years to make, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
But
the story's so good though.
Yeah.
So heartfelt.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was good. And then we had cheesecake that probably killed me. But I got my numbers back in, and I'm good,
there
baby. I got my diabetes
Y'all
numbers.
Good. Y'all good.
So
I
yeah,
need to hit the gym. It's bad. It's been bad. All I do is sit and watch TV, play games, work in Photoshop. Even like good things that I'm doing with my brain, I'm just sitting and I'm
the
like,
body is vegetating.
The body is vegging hard. But
I feel that.
Yeah. Well, we'll wrap it up. Next week we will be doing we're dubbing them a late to the party review. So one of the reasons we're calling it that is because we know that as a result of just being into 30,000 different things, and with every 15,000 things coming out every single day that are new that we want to check out, we fall behind on a lot of things, and some of them are things that we wouldn't have been able to see because we weren't even born yet. So we're every now and then going to be doing episodes that are called late to the party reviews, that are just going to be talking about something that is from a while ago. It might be just a couple months. It might be a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And in this case, it's that span of whatever I said.
It's one of those
spans, and it will be a late to the party review of the first Alien movie by Ridley Scott.
Dude, that movie came out in 79.
79.
So that's late to the party 40 years.
40 years, baby.
39 if you want to be technical.
Yeah. So 40 years later, we're going to be watching Alien, and I've never seen it. And
I think I've seen it once, but I don't remember what happens. I just know there's creepy aliens.
There's aliens and stuff.
Turn other people into creepy aliens.
Yeah. So it was on when I was watching, or when I was getting my calf tattoo, and I was like, this is engaging. Like, I'm digging this, but because it was more vibey horror, it wasn't the like, alien monsters, I'm gonna eat your face off.
Yeah, it's like sci-fi thriller.
Yeah, it was like sci-fi thriller horror, which to me was more interesting than just outright monster
horror.
Exactly. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. But then, there's all these like bloody scenes and my leg hurt. And I was like, I'm not good. This isn't good for me. So, but yeah, so that'll be a review of Alien next week. Late to the party, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby.
But until then, you can catch our show on, oh my gosh, the list has changed like 2 times now. iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, TuneIn Radio, and Spotify. You can catch merch and stuff on Threadless and Redbubble. And I think they just had a sale on today, which is Monday the 22nd, but I don't know if it'll be
help people.
All these people. You missed it.
You missed it.
You missed
You're
it.
done.
But yeah, keep your eyes out on the site. They usually will have like 25% off on shirts.
Pretty frequently, too.
Yeah, almost every other week. And so if you want to catch merch and catch it at a good price, you can catch it for like $20. A lot of catching. If you want to catch some Pokemons, there's the Pokemons and all that stuff.
Catch that merch.
Catch that merch, dog. You can catch... Gosh, my brain is at 6:30. Like, this is why we don't record this during the work week, because I'm like
during the work week.
Because I'm like, you catch the merch, and then catch them all, and then you go, and then everywhere else is my brain's just fried, dog. So you can find our merch on Redbubble and Threadless. And then what else do we have to say? Twitter.
Shoot us questions and suggestions or thoughts or anything you want to tell us at popculturepunks@gmail.com.
Yes.
Or you can connect with us on Twitter and Instagram at popculturepunks. And personally, I am Phil Sorensen and Six Wing Creative and C. San Pellegrino.
I always have to think hard
and
on his.
Chris of the Vast.
And
those all have the @ sign in front of them if you're not familiar with Twitter. And if you're not familiar with Twitter, you probably aren't using Twitter. So
get with it.
Fools.
And then our Instagrams are the same. So so if you want to check us out, and we're gonna try and be better. We should discuss next week about
Speaking of which, I'm gonna take a selfie right now.
Mid podcast. So if you wanna listen to the podcast and see the post work brain, what we look like while we're recording in our tiny office.
If I can actually do this.
Are you selfieing? Should I
took a selfie and then I took a picture of you as well.
Oh, let's do this. You selfie. I'll take a picture of you selfieing.
Okay.
And then we'll meme it, and it'll be great. All right. Fantastic. Sweet.
Boom.
And with that, this has been the Pop Culture Punks podcast. I love your faces, and I'll see you. It flows too well.
It flows too well.
This has been the Pop Culture Punk podcast. Y'all are the best. Keep it classy, and I bid you a fond cowabunga.
Job security, but I've been dreaming about packing it all up, cause the war in me just won't relent till there's nothing left but dust. So what do you do when the walls start closing in, and everyone you love tells you it's all just in your head?